Hey guys, and welcome back to the Devine Witch. Today's Monday upload is going to be a little bit different than anything I think we've done before here on this channel. And I just want to start out this video by thank you guys for who've been subscribing, watching the videos, sending me emails from past videos. I really do appreciate it. And, I'm glad that I can offer a helping hand, or at least my perspective within my path, to share with you guys. So today's video, I am going to put a trigger warning up for it, just because of the content in which we are talking about religious discrimination when it comes into the pagan community, and the fear associated with that. So if that is something that you do not want to partake in, I would advise now for you to just close out this video, go about your day. No harm, no foul, as far as I'm considered or concerned. So with that being said, make sure that if you do plan to watch, like, comment, subscribe. You can feel free to share your stories with others, but please do keep it nice in the comment section, because, this is a discussion that we are having. And I know that there's a lot of us out there that are dealing with trauma, and some of the situations that we're going to be talking about today is going to reopen those wounds. So please just keep in mind, even though we have difference in religious views or opinions, anyone mentioned in this video, don't go out searching basically to bring them harm or threats. It's a topic of discussion that we've had within the pagan community for a long time, as long as I've been around in it. But I feel like right now it is prominent because of the fear that is being created due to what's going on. So with that being said, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and let's go ahead and dive into today's discussion. I know many of you are probably wondering what sparked this discussion. Currently, right now, on YouTube, news stations, TikTok, a lot of social media, even Facebook, there is a pastor that is going viral for his belief and his attacks on anything to deal with the occult, witches, paganism, and even the Masons. And it's brought up, some really funny videos, but it's also brought up, fear in individuals. Because, the old saying goes, if you're not afraid to burn a book, you're not afraid to burn somebody. And the one video that's going more viral than the book burning that this church had taken part in, that is being led by this pastor, is a video of us. It seems like, they were in a sermon and he's preaching, which, that's how it normally starts, right? And during this sermon, he calls out saying that there's 6 witches within his congregation, 3 of them who were present at that spot at that moment. And to one of them, that they actually had their address, and they made threats of them to leave, or that they would be outed, which to me, I found that funny for the reason being, okay, so you want them to leave at that moment, or you're going to expose them. But if they leave and they walk out, they're going to expose themselves. So, I mean, to me, that was kind of like a double whammy right there. You're not going to win, no matter which way you go. Now, within our pagan system, there's always been this battle between, is Christian witches a thing? And, how does it contradict or not contradict paganism, witchcraft, whatever it is? So, a lot of people who are of a Christian faith and do consider themselves as witches tend to go to church as a way of ritual, as a way of worship, so that way they can incorporate that into their spirituality, because they have places to go to worship and with people around them. So, there's this ideal of, now Christian witches are getting doxxed by their own church. And it's not something that's new, witches being in the church. It's happened throughout the centuries when certain religions would come through and say either you convert or you get killed And I think that's part of why we're having this fear come up. And if anybody knows any history or has done any research, when this conversion would happen, it just wasn't overnight like, oh, yes, my faith has changed. You know what I mean? I've seen the light. It was more done out of fear and survival. So then they would place, their gods in with the new system that was being forced upon them. And over the years, most people in the United States grow up with a Christian-based faith. No matter if it's baptism, Pentecostal, whatever fraction or division that they're in, it's still under that same umbrella of worship. It just may be done differently. The sermons may be done differently. The church may look different, but the message is still the same 9 times out of 10. And over the last couple of years, there has been progress. There's been a lot of interfaith gatherings, between pagans and Christians, satanic churches even. You've also got, all these other faiths. And then if you look at the Masonic Lodge, the one thing to join, one of the main things to join is that you have to have faith in something. And it didn't always used to be that way. It used to be a Christian brotherhood, but they expanded over the years. So, I'm just putting that in there because they were thrown into this. And, you can go online, you can see some of the things that the Masonic Lodge does, and it does have a very ritualistic style to it. And the same could be said for Catholicism as well, like the drinking of the blood or the embodiment of Christ. If you look at baptism and you look at, the actual doing of baptism where, you're submerged underwater and then you come out clean. There's all these different life and death rituals that have went on for centuries. And it's not just in baptism, it's been in all these other religions as well. But baptism, when you think of Baptist, you think of baptism. So, that's one of the things that I wanted to point out as well. Every religion has its ritualistic properties, its ways of doing things. To normally 9 times out of 10, if you are in some faith and you're with a group of people, which is most what people want, whether it be a coven, whether it be a group like ours, or whether it be something else entirely. It's a place where people can come together, practice, learn, have discussions, have debates, and to be able to spiritually grow, maybe find people whose path is a little bit different that they can learn from. As I always say, there's a little bit of truth in everything. And to put your faith completely into one thing, you could be missing bits and pieces that would totally complete it. And that's my personal perspective. Now, when it comes to the situation, as to the fear that it conducts and brings forth, it brings upon, the things that we have in our community, the division between, the light workers, the ones who dwell within more of a darker or somewhere in between, like myself, where I acknowledge both, I work with both because it's part of the human experience itself. But you get into this whole debate about privacy, not wanting to come out, whether it be because of family or because of work or because people won't understand, but yet this is your faith. And there's the debate of like, why can't you come out? Why are you so fearful? And then when things like this happen, it kind of brings back that fear that one had. And, it puts it to the forefront. And I've seen a lot of people comment, this is why I don't go out. This is why I don't go to events. This is why I stay solitary. And then you've got a few witches coming up to the forefront going like, well, okay, come find me. Here's my address. You want to, exorcise this demon from me, please come forth. If you can do it, then I'll convert, And it's kind of you get the two ends of the spectrum within our community. But it also brings a whole new fear to those who identify as Christian witches. Now, most of the Christian witches that I've known, They don't go to the congregation and be like, oh, I do magic, I heal with herbs. They don't do that because they know that there's still fear within the church. They will be ostracized. They will have people come in after them. And, if that's not their heart, they're not there to bring demons upon, so to speak, their congregation. They're just there, just like everybody else, wanting to connect with their community, wanting to connect with their spirituality. And, there was a woman I once knew who worked in a church. And when I met her, I was young, teenager actually. But yet she ran a witches group secretly. And I always thought it was funny. And I remember asking her one day, how do you do it? Because at the time, for some of us, we've grown and we've learned, the aspects of, everybody's got different religions, even though, we have scars from it, we can still acknowledge that that's the religious people who took it to a certain extreme, but not everyone within that religion is that extreme. And we would expect the same from anybody who looks at us and our path whenever we say we're a witch or we're a pagan or we're a shaman or we're Nordic or one of the big ones, Asatru. One of the things that the Asatru community has dealt with for years is racism. Well, and then when you tell them, like, I practice the Norse way, and people look at you automatically like, well, are you a good Norseman or are you a bad Norseman? And it's that fear that brings it to not wanting to be associated with things that either may be harm to yourself or harm to others. And it kind of goes into the doctrination of like Wicca, do no harm and so forth. And, it's kind of almost like a universal law, every reaction has a chain reaction from the minor little things that you wouldn't think about to the most extreme. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at, where we're trying to figure out, what do we do? What do we do as a community? Do we go out there and, fight back, so to speak, whether it be through protest or, trying to have a conversation? And I think one thing, especially for me, and I noticed this in 2020, and it was one of the hardest things for me to realize when we were doing this protest here in town. We try to get multiple faiths, just for a reason being that, we wanted people to come up and talk, no matter what their faith was, no matter what they believed in, because it was open to all. And we couldn't get no one. And it really got to me for the longest time, because I'm sitting here thinking, a couple years back, I had went to this interfaith and there's so much going on just a couple hours away from us. And, it blows your mind how much hate and how much bigotry and how much fear is still being presented. And even if you have good intentions to bring people together for a common goal, that fear, that bias can still stand in the way of progression. And, it's one of those things that's went on historically forever, you know what I mean? And then when you do have people come together that you wouldn't think would come together, it blows people's minds, because you got two different people who have two different religious styles coming together on what some would say is opposite ends of the spectrum and working as one, no matter, what their faith is. And they both acknowledge, like, this is your faith, this is my faith. And we have a common goal in the middle, which is unity, community, helping out, trying to be better than we were the day before. And when you recognize that this is still a thing, like, you have the nicety of where, you're not getting preached at, but then you get the silence of no one standing with you. And I think what most people forget is that there's churches and there's people like this who believe in this, to where they don't think a witch should live. They don't think prophecy should be done. They don't think that you should gather. And if you look at all these traditions that have magical aspects, a big part of it is acknowledging the seasons. acknowledging the harvest within those seasons, working with, what you got around you to be the healer, not just in a spiritual sense, but in an actual physical sense, knowing herbs and how they work, knowing crystal vibrations and how they work, and being able to use that to help their community. And, some are teachers, some, talk about different stories, whether it be, mythos or whether it be life experience, but it all comes together to help either themselves, the people they're around, or just someone who's lost. We all have our own versions, no matter what the path is, of, a soul being lost, whether it be wandering. I always take the Moses and the wandering for 40 years. I take that as more symbolic than I do a physical representation of spending 40 years of your life trying to find out where you fit, what nourishes you, not only physically, mentally, but spiritually. And to be able to go on that journey, to go through them trials, to struggle, and to come out on the other end with this sense of an aha moment. And I feel like that's what faith is. There's always a talk about religion, is it about money or is it about this? Because, churches get exempt, religious organizations get exempt from certain taxes and things like that. And you see these mega churches where they have the nicest building and brand new cars, and yet their flock or their congregation or their people or their community are barely making it by. And that's what kind of like pushes that narrative. Like, see, we try to tell you it's all corrupt. But not everything is like that. Not every church or organization or group or whatever it is pushes that narrative of the mighty dollar. Yes, you do need the mighty dollar to have gatherings. Unfortunately, we live in a time of COVID right now. And, one of the biggest traditions was, to go to other people's houses, and have church or communion or ritual or whatever at that person's house. And that would be your building. That would be your structure, your church, your temple, if you didn't have one around you. But now we're to the point to where we have more people, we have more structures, and houses it's not something that everybody has. Some of us have apartments or trailers, or we have neighbors, and we're so much more closer together than we were ever in the past, that it makes it hard to do that unless it's a small, controlled kind of group. And as you expand, as an organization or a faith, and you have more people, then you got to create more space. And that's where you get the money for like the churches. And you can, when you have a building, you have electricity, you have water. And depending on like, if you open it up, during the winter months or the summer months at night to homeless, or, the things that you got going during the weekend. And then you got people coming during the day looking for someone to talk to that has their faith, looking to guidance. That's why they call it the shepherd, or they call it the priest or the priestess or the goya or the goija, because these are the people that you come to. This is their life. This is what they do. They don't do anything else. They work for their flock, and they may work for a prison, or, they might end up going to facilities for rehab, or they might end up going to the local senior center just to kind of see how everybody's doing and offer support if they need it. And if they don't, they move along. And the reason I bring this up is because, I didn't just watch the videos of what's going on. Last night, I deep dive and I looked at it, and I remember some of my past experiences. I remember some of the stories I've heard from others who hold that hate towards, Christian faiths because of either they've seen what they've done in the past, or some continue to do. or, you know, they see things like this and it makes them scared. Now, for me, I'm not scared. I do not fear this man, nor do I fear anyone that's like them. I've seen them, I've had them come to events, and, you know, there is the fear of, what if something happens? What if these people want to hurt me? And then you don't really so much worry about yourself as you worry about who it's going to affect if something did happen to you. And that's a scary notion. And not everybody's going to be out in public. And this might actually make people kind of revert back a little bit and might spread like wildfire. You know, it only takes one stone to, you know, create a ripple effect. And before you know it, all different states and things like that. Especially if you look at America right now and you look at the abortion thing that's going on. It's been going on for a while. Which with that, you know, you have this religious, you know, faith or practice being pushed on people who may not have the same belief. And many people say, you know, don't put your religions in my politics and stuff like that. But realistically, it's going to happen, because when someone has faith, no matter what kind of faith it is, that's their compass and that's their guide, whether it's your guide or my guide or someone else's guide. And, you know, it's driven not only by what they believe, but how were they raised? What was the customs that they're used to? What is right for them? Or did they have some kind of spiritual awakening and they think that they're doing good, when in reality, you know, the message seems to be a little bit fueled with hate. But there's some things that I've seen from different videos that haven't been published and talked about, where you can tell there's a need to help people out of bad situations. And for me, that's the lining. Because as anybody knows who does any kind of clergy work whatsoever, you see a lot of people go through things. You have people come in and out of your life, and it drags you down, and then you go through these weird stages of like just either anger, and then you have to acknowledge that anger and work past it and ask yourself, why is it angering me? This isn't my life. This isn't my choice, but they were put in front of you. And you feel like when you have people put on your path, you have to offer them something. And in the back of our minds, you know, it's this thought of like, I hope it sticks. I hope they hear it. I hope it helps them. Maybe this is going to be the one that just, it opens their mind. You know what I mean? And it doesn't always happen that way. But staying on the topic at hand, you know, there's many sides to this. And that's why I bring it up, because, you know, we can sit here and we can gripe as a community, and we can worry and we can be in fear because we don't know what's going to happen next. And I know there's a lot of these titles going around, the next witch burning, or the witch hunts have started. The witch hunts never stopped. They just became better at it. And they got into politics for some of them. Some of them got into school districts. Some of them got into police forces. Like, it's always been around. It's nothing new. And some of your older generation tried to tell you, like, hey, this is going to happen. Because when it comes to religion, you're going to have your good, your bad, and your neutral. It's like anything else in life. You have your good people, your bad people, and depending on your spectrum or your moral compass of good or bad, it's going to be the same. But it's reasons like this and what's going on that we've decided next year and through this year, working to be a close group, to give it more of that personal comfort, to where you don't have to fear about your job, about a congregation, or, you know, just worrying that someone's out to get you because of your faith. And it was a hard decision to make as someone that's had a group that's open, like we accept everybody. But over the years, you realize there's some people out there who do not have good intent or have the ability to harm others, whether physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, because they either disagree or whatever it may be with their practice or their faith or just who they are. You know, some people can meet people for the first time and be like, I just don't like them. But realistically, for someone else, that person is the best person in the world and they can't understand why people treat them that way. Things that boggle the mind. And, you know, I've sat back multiple times and I've thought, why is there so much hate? Why is there so much division? Why is it so hard to get people together? And it's because we all grew up differently. Some of us got away from the narrative because it didn't speak to our soul. That's why you hear the words curse breaker or breaking family curses. You know what I mean? Because you are different than the flock or the congregation or the group or the bloodline that is around you. And you're doing things differently and acknowledging that, you know, people deserve rights or people can love who they are and they don't have to hide. They can identify as a squirrel flying through the air and you do not care. But yet you go to a family cookout or something and you know all that hate and that fuel because of what has been passed down from tradition to tradition. And it's hard to break them cycles or those mental cycles or spiritual cycles that we get ourselves in. This is one of the reasons why I say contemplation is the best thing that was given to us, no matter what you believe, because it gives you time to sit there, think with your thoughts, your spiritual path, or your scientific mind, if that's the path that you want to go down, and really think about it and take yourself out of the situation, which is hard. It's not easy, especially when you're dealing with people that you love, that you care about. And it's an emotional roller coaster that you got to try to adjust to. And it's not like there's a handbook that comes with every person that you meet or every experience. And plus, we've also got to think of this too as well, that media has a tendency to perpetuate fear. But does it mean that the things that they're perpetuating as fear is not existent? No, they exist all the time, but you don't hear about them. A lot of churches don't go around like this, but they have that underlying sludge, as I like to call it. And we all know either one church or one person that has this kind of mentality. And I think that's what pushes the fear even more. But I wanted to have this discussion because it's not new. And I know many are getting into this path because whether it be a book or they just felt like they vibed with it, it spoke to them, or maybe other religions didn't work for them, or maybe they have religious trauma, which is a thing as well. And I think it's one of the things that we don't identify as the religious trauma that we are put through. And, you know, it's just like algorithms. Algorithms can feed into whatever your interests are or your dislike. And in life, it's the same thing. The energies that we put ourselves with align with our own thinking. So if you align with people that are like, oh yeah, you know, Christians suck, or, you know, Norse pagans suck, or, you know what I mean? And it perpetuates that. And you never break that cycle. You're always living in that same reality. And I believe in my personal practice that we are here to expand our horizon, our perceptions, our thinking. And that brings a certain level of peace and a certain level of knowledge that we couldn't have got otherwise. So what I'm saying with this on my own personal perspective is I know that some people are fearful. They may not follow this channel. They may never follow this channel ever again. We may get people who are like, die or whatever. But in the end of the day, You have the right to choose whether or not you want to be in a public or a private setting. But do not let the fear of it overrule the experience in which it brings you, no matter what religion you're in, no matter what path you follow. You know, you don't have to go out there and be on the front lines, you know, screaming and protesting or whatever it may be. But allow yourself to expand a little bit more each and every day, whether it's for religion or it's for spiritual growth, or it's seeing something on a different side or a different opinion because you don't live in that skin, or you don't live in that, you know, mindset, or you've been lucky enough to not have to go through the trials and the tribulations that are associated with experiences, because it allows you to understand people more. And with understanding others, you can finally learn to understand yourself better. So with that being said, hopefully you guys like this podcast style thing that I decided to do and the topic at hand. And hopefully, you know, we can work together just to be stronger, to offer certain things to the public of, you know, this is what it is. This is my path. This is my religion. To have more interfaith discussions, to have different ideals, you know, when it comes to faith, and to research things that may not be our path, but maybe someone around us. So that way we can find the common ground that we share, even if we can never agree about it. So with that being said, always remember, friends, stay safe, stay humble, and no two witches, witch alike.